Hey guys, JJ back here. This time to chat on Oklahoma versus Kansas. Line opens Kansas -1, total 142.5. So we were able to extend our winning streak with the Louisville cover on Sunday against Notre Dame, bringing the channel up to 12-3 against the spread in college hoops. This Tuesday is actually packed with a lot of top fledge action. I'm seeing 11 ranked teams on this slate. So it's a lot for a Tuesday night. Definitely a lot of different action you can bet. But ultimately, I landed on this game in particular. And it's a pretty high-fledged game, pretty important game for Kansas, a very important game for Oklahoma. This is actually going to be the third Kansas game I've given out betting on this channel. So this will be the third game out of a total of 16 if you include this one that's Kansas. So nearly 20% of the games I've given you guys have involved Kansas. So we bet Kansas State when they hosted Kansas, which was a fairly easy cover, and then we bet Kansas on the revenge game when Kansas hosted Kansas State. Both are fairly easy covers. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on this Kansas team. I've watched a lot of tape on them. I know that they're a young team, but I mean I've watched a lot of tape on them. I have a pretty good idea of the ins and outs of how they operate, where they feel comfortable, where they aren't comfortable. And this research, watching all those games has given me a much better perspective on them than just say somebody who's looking at box scores. Kansas has passed or failed the eye test for me on certain scenarios, but more or less I have a lot of eye footage on them, and I think it helps me. I know it helps me when I'm looking to predict future outcomes. So interesting matchup here with OU. This will be the second time these two teams meet. First time was much earlier in the season, early January, where Kansas won in Kansas 70-63. For starters, I do believe a lot of people will look at this line. Your blue blood people who love to bet teams like Kansas are going to look at this line and see that they only have to lay one here, and be thinking maybe is this a quote unquote trap game? Here's why I don't think it's a trap game per se. I think this line is fair because I know trap game is like that term where it's like a team is getting middled in between a few games. Like a really good team is playing, comes off of an emotional win, goes to play a shit team where maybe they're like a 12 or 15 point favorite. And then the game after that is a game where, they're going to go back on the road or they're going to host the best team in the conference, something like that. So that middle game, a lot of people sometimes consider the trap game, the look-pass game. This game in particular, I don't consider a trap game, even though that might be something that gets said, because I think this line is what I would have anticipated the odds makers coming out with it. Now, this brings up another point, because just because the odds makers come out with a line doesn't necessarily mean it's the right line. And that's definitely what I feel, or what I have as the case here. Now, why is the line only 1? Okay, so there are some teams in college this year, every year actually for that matter, that are built to win on the road, and some teams that are just built to win at home. Now, this Kansas team, as I mentioned on the videos in the past, is the 321st youngest team in the country. What does that mean? That means that this team, when they get put in a hostile environment, they tend to, I hate to use the word choke, but they tend to feel the pressure. Okay, I've seen this team give away leads in the second half. I've seen this team allow crap teams to get a big lead on them early on the road. It's no surprise that a team that young struggles to play quality basketball for 40 minutes on the road. Now, at home, this is a whole different team. This team is very good at home, but honestly, it's irrelevant in this scenario. Let me give you the quick snapshot of Kansas's last 7 games on the road. Most recently at Oklahoma State, 5-point win despite trailing by 5 at the half. For those that aren't aware, Oklahoma State is the worst team in the Big 12. So Oklahoma does win the game, does not cover. Game before that, they go at Texas Tech, 29-point molly-whopping by Texas Tech, yielding 91 points. Oklahoma yields 91 points to Texas Tech, a team that's really known for top-fledged defense, not so much offense. Just a really poor performance by them. Game before that is a TCU road win. This was the only game This is the only game Kansas covered over these 7 games that I'm going to give you, and it required an overtime win to cover as well. So yikes. Game before that, Kansas State, they suffer a 7-point loss as a 2.5-point dog. At Texas, 10-point loss as a 1-point dog. At Kentucky, 8-point loss as a 5-point dog. And at West Virginia, a 1-point loss as a 4-point favorite. Calculate that up. That is 1-6 against the spread. Last 7 road games. Overall, Kansas is 3-7 record-wise on the road this season, and a very poor 2-8 against the spread. And again, one of those 2 covers was in overtime against TCU, and one was a barely cover against Baylor. They won by 5. They were 3.5-point favorites there. So nothing has been an easy victory for this Kansas team when they go on the road. Now, at home, much better team, as I mentioned, but completely irrelevant here. When I did the Kansas video a few days back, I said, now is the time to jump on the Kansas ship. Everybody's jumping off. Now is the time to jump on. But what I did say, and if you watch the video, you'll see it, I did say that Kansas will be an underdog in 1 game remaining from here on out. And I did say that I expected it to be Oklahoma. Now, it is surprising to me that, I can't say I'm fully surprised, because I get the whole blue blood money conversation here. It's not surprised Kansas opens 1. I say blue blood money. Teams like Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, these are teams that are always going to get a lot of money on them. So when you're at the sports books, and whether you think this line is fair or not, you have to open it up with Kansas as the favorite here, primarily because you will get swamped with Kansas money if you don't. And it'll be a little too much risk for the books to handle. Now, they open this at -1, and you might look at it as, well, they're begging you to bet Kansas here. I don't think they're begging you to bet Kansas. When you look into these numbers, my opinion, they're actually begging you to bet Oklahoma. I think that the wrong team's favorite here. I think that Oklahoma, when I look at this matchup from many different angles, like I said, I'm not surprised they opened -1, but I certainly, if I was capping this game and I was an odds maker, I would think the realistic line would be 1.5. But again, I understand why it's not. The public, even maybe, I guess, some sharps, but primarily the public will be all over Kansas at this number of 1. This is why it's a tough line to predict where it's going to move from here. Again, I like Oklahoma here, and I'll give you a few more reasons in the next few minutes. But where this line is going to move is a tough question because, again, you're going to get a lot of public money on Kansas, but I do believe you're going to get a lot of sharp money back on Oklahoma. Where does this line go? I can't imagine Oklahoma becomes favorite here. They could, but if they do, I feel like a lot of people are going to turn around and bet Kansas money line. So, I do believe this game's going to hover somewhere between maybe pick and 2 for Kansas. I'd be shocked if it makes the flip and Oklahoma becomes favored. But again, I guess it's crazy that I'm saying that because the line I would put for the game is Oklahoma -1.5. So, but I'm saying that because the market, it is what it is. People love Kansas. Oklahoma's having a down year. Don't get me wrong, Kansas is as well. But people love Kansas. They're going to see this line and think, I only got to lay 1 with Kansas. Oklahoma's, maybe they think Oklahoma sucks. Oklahoma does not suck. But either way, the issue here is really that OU hasn't been playing all that well recently to support my prediction of what this line should actually be. I already mentioned the fact that if OU was to open up as a favorite, the books would have been hammered with KU money. But Oklahoma is 3-6 against the spread in their last 9. And even the 3 they covered were all sweats throughout. So Kansas is actually number 1 overall in strength of schedule, right? But and that's all in all of NCAA basketball. That's not in the Big 12. All in the NCAA basketball, Kansas is number 1 in strength of schedule overall. Oklahoma isn't far behind, though. Oklahoma is number 10 overall and number 9 in out-of-conference strength of schedule. OU has played some tough teams and are a much better team than their 12 losses may indicate. Now, as far as game flow goes, these two teams are very similar in tempo. Expect a very fast-paced game. These two teams move quick, but both teams play better defense than offense. Both teams do not foul. They're very average on the glass. They defend inside the three-point line very well, but are susceptible to giving up the 3. From the offensive side of things, both have below-average assist-to-turnover ratios compared to the rest of the country. Both are very average shooting teams, and both are below-average free throw shooting teams when you compare it against the rest of the nation. There are many comparisons to be made here, but the argument, or my best description of how these two teams are, is Oklahoma is basically a poor man's Kansas. These two teams are built very similar. They do very similar things. But when you take this game as a whole, and I look at these two teams, are very similar. Again, maybe OU is a bit of a poor man's Kansas, but when you unravel this onion, Kansas's road woes just smell the strongest. I mean, there is no close second in handicapping this game than what Kansas's road woes are. And this game is a very important game to Oklahoma for a few different reasons. Oklahoma needs another win, another marquee win like this one. They do end the season at Kansas State. They could win that game. They're going to be probably 5 or 6 point underdogs there, though, on the road. This is going to be senior night for Oklahoma. And this is a team that plays a decent amount of seniors, and they're led by Christian James, who's a stud. I would expect OU in this spot to feed off the home crowd, pull off the win here. This will solidify OU into the bracket. Despite how they perform in the Big 12 tournament, Kansas is already a lock to get in the dance. This game doesn't mean as much to them. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure Kansas would love the idea of continuing this whole Big 12 conference streak, but Texas Tech has been just so dominant. I mean, it's going to be their conference this year. Yeah, we're practically, it's theirs to lose. Now, there'll be the Big 12 tournament where Kansas might be able to spark themselves forward and win that. But as far as ending the season with the better record, Tech has just had a tremendous season and deserves to be the number one team in the Big 12. But when you talk about handicapping motivation for this game, and I'm not a big guy on handicapping motivation. I truly believe at its core, handicapping motivation is nearly impossible. I don't care what the situation is. If you don't know an individual, or you don't know the individuals on teams actually, like personally, how do you handicap motivation? Like, how do you know a player is motivated for a game? Like, people say this all the time. Oh, well, I want to bet this team. They're so motivated. They need this win. But like, you don't even know what motivates them as individuals. How would you know that? I mean, yeah, on paper, I guess, sure. Makes sense. They would be motivated. They would be more motivated to win a game, especially if it meant more. But how do you truly know? But in this scenario in particular, this is a team that's led by seniors, and they're going up against a team that's primarily freshmen. It's senior night. This is a must-win spot for Oklahoma. I just feel like you're gonna get a really rowdy home crowd here. You're going to get a really rowdy home crowd. You're going to get seniors that I'm sure want nothing more than to go out knowing they beat Oklahoma. I mean, knowing they beat Kansas. I think that all that means is you're just going to get a team that I feel is going to hustle more. And it's going to matter because the hustling is going to matter on the offensive glass. It's going to matter in forcing turnovers. It's going to matter in getting those extra possessions. It's going to matter in hitting your free throws. Those extra elements I feel like are heavy factors that lead me towards Oklahoma here. Mention the fact that this is practically a near must-win. They'd have to upset Kansas State on the road to solidify them for a bracket opportunity. So again, for me, guys, I have this capped at Oklahoma -1.5. So I will happily take the 1 here. Could even, if you wanted to instead, bet the money line. Don't bet both. Don't bet Oklahoma +1 and money line. You can bet the money line here. You might be able to get, I guess, at +1. I guess you'd get what, +100. You might even, I guess it's -110, -105, whatever it is. Just realize I like Oklahoma in this spot. If you can get a better line than that, great. But again, as I told you before, I can't predict 100% sure which direction this is going to move. All the numbers indicate, with how poor Kansas plays on the road, that this should be, the sharp money should be on Oklahoma here. But again, blue blood Kansas only have to lay 1 against a team that hasn't been performing that well in Oklahoma. I could see how this line could go in either direction. So again, Oklahoma versus Kansas. This game is on Tuesday night. And I will be taking Oklahoma +1. I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Please feel free to comment below. Always love responding to the comments. And if you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And subscribe if you aren't. As I mentioned, really put out some good content for you guys. Tell your friends about the channel if you're not already. Again, it's free to watch. Giving you guys free content. And other than that, I want to thank you guys for watching again. And let's stay hot and grab another win here. Thanks again, guys.